Thanks for joining me. By the way, my name is Jean-Joseph. I am a data engineer and work for Microsoft as a technical trainer. In today's video, we're going to explore how the generative AI can be leveraged as a knowledgeable peer to assist you with end-to-end transact database development. This powerful tool can help you create database objects like tables, views, functions, synonym, and store procedure. Moreover, even assist with process logging and error handling. The generative AI is not just a tool. It's like having a knowledgeable colleague right beside you, offering insight and suggestions, helping you to navigate the complex world of database development. It's like having a second pair of eyes on your code, catching errors, suggesting improvement, and even generating code snippet for us. However, it is important to note that to get the most out of this video, we should have a basic understanding of both Python and Transact SQL. Don't worry if you are not an expert. The goal here is to learn and grow together. For your information, for API calls, we will be using Azure OpenAI ChatGPT 3.5 or latest, but the same can also be done with OpenAI. If you want to follow along and use the code from this video, you will find it in my GitHub repository. Just remember to update your environment variable to match your own setup. So, are you ready to dive in and see how the generative AI can revolutionize your approach to database development? Let's get started. Oh, by the way, I forgot to remind you that I am the guy with the accent behind the screen. So hope you enjoyed this video. As we all know, we first need to start with the basic requirement. Therefore, let us imagine that we have recently received the CSV files from our business user that contain valuable data for our operations. This file is expected to be sent to us on a daily basis, and we believe it would be beneficial to automate it. However, to process with this task, we need to ensure that we have a clear understanding of business expectation associated with this file. This include, but it's not limited to understanding the data structure, the required transformation, the destination, database schema, and any specific business rules that need to be applied during the processing. Moreover, it is crucial that we adhere to database development best practices during this process. This include proper error handling, logging, data validation, and ensuring the security and integrity of the data. Before we proceed with the development, especially those following agile methodologies, there is a phase known as requirement gathering or business analysis. During this phase, IT professionals meet with business stakeholders to understand their needs and expectations. The goal is to translate this business requirement into technical specification that can guide the development process. This ensures that The final product align with the business objective and meet the user needs. However, the specific of this process can vary, depend on the organization and the project. So therefore, let's dive into our main code where we will leverage ChatGPT and prompt engineering. So the angle of this demo is to show you how we can have prompt as transact SQL database development. This is the notebook we will be working on, okay? Within that notebook, as you can see, I already explained, some of the details. Once you go to my GitHub repository, you will be able to download it. There will be some, database development stages you will need to read, okay? And then, this is where I explain how we can leverage the generative AI as a knowledgeable peer. And there is one section. So once you download that, what I would suggest you to do, the bicycle data prompt.json. This is where it's located. It is the one that holds the entire conversation, the flow, the sequence. And this is very valuable. You might see there is a consistency within the script, right? And you can see we have different kind of conversation. And I highly suggest you are free to update this, you change it, but make sure it works for you as expected. And this demo work on ChatGPT 3.5 and latest. If we go back to our notebook, you will see that there is an environment. That environment file is where we have our sensitive information store like Azure, OpenAI, key, and endpoint. And we have another folder called T-SQL. This is where we will tell ChatGPT to save each script that will be generated. And then we have the CSV files. If you take a look here, the CSV files is what we will load. This is it. And we will use this file just to check the functionality of error handling. With that in mind, allow me to guide you through the details of codes. This will enable you to experiment with it and successfully replicate the result. This Python code you are seeing right here, set up an environment to interact with the Azure OpenAI API. It begins by importing necessary libraries and loading um, environment variable from a data env files. It then retrieve specific environment variable and set the parameter for the Azure OpenAI. Finally, it's initiate on Azure OpenAI client with the necessary credential and settings. So now we are ready to interact with the Azure OpenAI. You might see that we bringing temperature and max token. Temperature define the level of randomness when it comes to ChatGPT creativity. Do you want ChatGPT more creative, balanced, or concise? In my case, I would rather ChatGPT to be concise because this video mainly related on code generation. So therefore, we do not want ChatGPT to be too smart. That's the reason why I set it up to 0. If we want it to be too smart, we can set it up close to 1 or 1. You might see also Azure OpenAI API Max token. Max token, define the length of ChatGPT completions. If it's too low and your script require more tokens, truncation will happen. If it's too high, cost will impact. As you know, we are being charged by the number of token processes. So here, what I'm doing here is that if you take a look at these Python functions, is that I'm creating a functions to store each piece of the Transact SQL script that Azure OpenAI will generate. This function will use later. So we need two things for these functions. We need a file name and some content. So it tries to open a file name with the provided name and write the content into it. If something goes wrong, like the file cannot be opened, it catches the error and let us know. Later on, we can use these functions to save the Transact SQL script that Azure OpenAI generated. The next one is that if you take a look, this is a function script. What this function is doing, it will send a request to Azure OpenAI API to generate completion based on the provided messages. The response is then processed and the content is writing to a file with the given name with the help of the functions we just created that will allow ChatGPT to save the script to a file. So one thing to keep in mind is that the message variable is an array of key value pair where we will assign the system and user input or prompt. So now, what I'm doing here is that here I am defining the sequence of operations for the Transact SQL development process. Each operation is associated with a specific SQL script file. The key dictionary map each step number to a tuple containing the operation name and the corresponding SQL script file name. Each operation can be found in this bicycle data prompt.json. So this JSON file hold the flow of our conversation that will be sent to Azure OpenAI. You might be wondering how I maintain context and manage costs. In generative AI, managing context and cost can be challenging. The system role is often used to provide the AI with necessary context or hints about the conversation. Meanwhile, concise user input or prompt help in effectively communicating with the AI, guiding it to generate relevant response while managing computational costs. However, the specific can vary depending on the AI model and the implementation. So now, if I can see my mouse, if this part of the script, it's ideal before sending the request to Azure OpenAI, it's always recommended to verify the flow of the conversation. This is what these scripts are doing. They will point the system role and the sequence of each user input or prompt. So before we go too far, let's go and execute some of them right there. So here, let me execute this. Okay. Here I'm creating these functions. And then here I'm creating the function that will send uh, request to Azure OpenAI. Here I'm defining the flow. of the conversation, if I click here to verify the level of the conversation, we assign a role to ChatGPT, because you know ChatGPT have been trained on the internet data. So therefore, ChatGPT knows all our knowledge. We do not want ChatGPT to leverage that entire knowledge. We want it to be specific. And I won't read the entire prompt because you will be able to access it. Otherwise, the video will be so long, right? So here's the thing. We're assigning a role and we define the schema definition and we define the user input. So we tell it to create a T-SQL script, as you can see here, and then we tell it to create a staging table, right? And we tell it to create a production table, okay? And then what we're going to do here, we will need to define a functions that will allow us to generate, okay, the conversation along with the file name. So what the script is doing, it will read from the JSON file and construct the system and user message based on the data it receives. It checks if the provided index is in the key. If it is, the function retrieves the user prompt and file name associated with the index. It then constructs the message list, which include the system role and the user prompt, and return the list along with the file name. If the index is not in the key, the function return none for both the message and the file name. So this is what we're going to do. As you can see, let's execute this. So now we are ready to send the request to Azure OpenAI. Okay. And with that, let's explore our initial transactional development by sending a request to Azure OpenAI and observe how a transactional file will be created under what we call T-SQL folder directory. So if I send this, you will see that it is executing. Notice that files are creating. And if we go and open these files, we can see they are valid transactional. As you can see here, take a look. We have all our object created based on the business requirement. Remember, one of the business requirement is either to allow business to filter based on a specific country. If we didn't provide any country, the entire data has to be returned. We can clearly see that if we go and we open create store procedure, you should see that ChatGPT was able to catch that. It knows to create on input parameters, okay? And then as you can see here, it's give us the logic. If the input parameter is null, the entire data will be written. Otherwise, if it's not null, we want the data to be written for that given country. But things you need to understand, we are not done yet, as we have not yet added the process login and error exception handling. So with that, let's go back to our notebook. What we're going to do now, okay, we will define a different level of communication. If you take, so now this is the flow of our conversation, okay? And what this one is doing, we are defining the conversation flow that will allow Azure OpenAI ChatGPT to generate T-SQL script for process logging and error exception handling. So here, what we're doing here, we are double checking the flow of the conversation and the content for system and user world. So if we execute this, you should see that now we change the role of uh, the system. So if we click here, you will see that we have now create error uh, handling object. If we go back here, you will see that this is the deployment type is exactly happen to be the same name. So now we are defining our user system form. What we are seeing here is that is the flow of the conversation, what we will be sending uh, to ChatGPT for ChatGPT to generate transact SQL for us. Yeah. And then here, what we're doing to do here is that we are sending the request to Azure OpenAI, ChatGPT, and observe how more transact SQL script file will be added to T-SQL folder directory. This is what we're doing here. So now if I execute this, you should see that there will be more files added, and those files are the one that will allow us to maintain process logging and error handling. As you can see, this is the table that will maintain all our process information, and we have a store procedure for error uh, handling. We have this schema that we need to create uh, to isolate process data from business data. So let's go back to our notebook. Now, we are still not done. As you can see, there's still more work to do. Why am I saying this? Right? If we go and we read uh, these files, let me see, you can see this is hard coding. That's not best practices. We need to tell ChatGPT to go and make this dynamic, make this ready for productions. If we go to the store procedure that it's generated, we don't have any error handling, any process logging. So we need to tell ChatGPT to go and optimize that for us. So if we go back right here, what we're doing here is that I'm creating a functions because in order for us to tell ChatGPT to go and make this ready for productions, ChatGPT has to be able to know the content. And the best way to know the content is read that T-SQL script file and send that to ChatGPT. That's what we're doing here. And then right here, we're telling ChatGPT, these are the files I want you to go and make them ready for production. So if we execute this, we can click here. You can see those are the files we will be working. Okay. This is the second one. And if you take a look here, all of these will be ready for productions. So guess what? Let's come back here. What I'm doing right there, okay, what I'm doing right here, I am leveraging the JSON file, the one that have the flow of our conversations, okay, and I'm sending that information to ChatGPT. I'm telling it those are the files you need to pay attention, and I'm changing the conversation. If we go back here, you will see that now this is where we are. We just tell it to make it reusable. So you can go and read the prompt. If I go back right here and I execute this, when I execute this, notice what will happen. Now, if I click here, you will see that ChatGPT was able to make this dynamic. And it knows based on the prompt we pass, it knows to leverage SP execute SQL. And we didn't do nothing. So you can see this is a well-written code, even though there's ways we can optimize it. But you can see that if we go back to our notebook and we click to the second file, you will see that ChatGPT was able to make that insert, okay, more productionized or ready for productions. If you take a look, it's this is our process logging. It knows where to add it. This is our error handling. It knows that. So therefore, you and I can agree that we leverage prompt as transact development. So what we have to do now, we will need to load that data to SQL Server or Azure SQL database. First, let's see if we can connect to SQL Server. What I'm doing here, I'm creating a functions, and that functions is what will allow me to know if I can access SQL Server. You can see that, yes, I can access it. We don't have any database called Azure OpenAI. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to connect to SQL Server. And then there's a piece of code you will find at the end of this if you want. Let's have fun a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy that code and I'm going to paste it to Management Studio, which is SSMS, one of our best tool. Okay, I'm going to create a database. And if you take a look, if you can see that that object doesn't exist. So let's verify if whatever code ChatGPT created, if those code are ready to be utilized. So if you remember here we didn't have Azure OpenAI. If we execute this, you should see that the one that we just created happened to be here, to be part of the list. Perfect. So what we're doing here, what I'm doing here is that I am creating another functions. The role of these functions is to load the data, right? This function connect to a SQL server or Azure SQL database and execute a T-SQL script file. It reads the script file line by line. If it's encounter a go statement, which is often used in Transact SQL to signal the end of a batch of statement. It executes the accumulated SQL query and reset it. If the line isn't a go statement, it appends the line to the SQL query. After all the lines are processed, any remaining line is executed. If the input isn't a SQL file, it treats the entire input as a SQL query and execute it. So this function commit the transaction and close the connection when done. That's exactly what it's doing. So now if I execute this, okay, here, what I'm doing here, if you think I'm defining our conversation, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm telling it the sequence to execute each file. Remember, if we are not using DBO, which is the default schema, we cannot create a table without having a user schema, right? We cannot create a view without having a table. So this is what I'm doing here. I'm defining the sequence of the executions. And just notice that we know we don't have any object on the database that we just created. You can see there's no object, absolutely no objects. So here, what I'm going to do now, I am going to connect to Azure SQL database, execute those files, and you should see that if I go back and refresh those files and refresh, you should see tables. And here you should see views. And here you should see store procedure. And you should even see what we call schema. If we go on security and schema, you should see we have our schema created. How cool is this? And we didn't do nothing. So now guess what? I can query the data. There is absolutely no failure. I can see, okay, there's nothing returned. So let's carry on. So what I'm doing here, I am loading that CSV files. Okay, that's what I'm doing into SQL Server stage table. So remember, when we're creating the stage table, we tell OpenAI to make all the schema definition to be what we call VACA 255. And if I can see that table, the stage table, okay, you can see that no, that's not the stage table. You can see that this is the definition of that stage table. So therefore, if we look for the production table, you should see that the production table has the current schema definition that we tell ChatGPT. You okay? All these informations are here just for your information. So now let's go and execute this. So let's go back one more time. Remember, we don't have any data on this stage, right? So no data. So let's go and execute this. Perfect. So now it's done. If we go back here, you can see that we have data, but we don't have data on production yet, but we should get data on the for logging process, right? So let's go. You should see that no, we have our entire information, the starting and the end of our executions. But there were no error. This should be empty as all business analysis point to this table. So therefore, this should be empty as well. There must be no view uh, data, and there must be no data returned from the store procedure. So what I'm going to do now, let's load the data to business object now, which is the PRD that sales table. If we go back here, we should see that we have data now for that store procedure, and then we have data for the view. And moreover, we have one more process log record, as you can see. How much time will it take? So that's the power of uh, the open AI or ChatGPT. But here's the thing, we are not done yet. You might be wondering, what about the error handling? I have a file for you. Let's see if ChatGPT catch that. Take a look right here. We cannot divide 1 by 0. That's impossible. But what we can, because the stage table, we cannot define 1 by 0. It's impossible. There's absolutely no way you can do that. However, the data will still be able to load into the stage environment because the stage environment has all the data happen to be VARCHAR 255 because we do not want our staging process to be failed because of data conversion. So now if we go, as you can see, this is the bad data. If I execute this, and when we're loading the data, remember we issue a truncate. Take a look. So here we have only one record. Let's see if we only have one record. So let's see, just to make sure our process work as expected. You can see now we have one record, and take a look. Do we have one more record added to our log? Yes, we do. Do we have any record added to our error exception? 0, because there were no error message. Just to have fun while I'm here is that this is the process that perform the insert, So if you remember, we didn't tell ChatGPT to do the conversion. ChatGPT was smart enough to perform the conversion. So consider, for example, if I execute this here and I come back here, remember there were no records. You should see that there is one record and say that, guess what? We cannot convert this. So you can see the entire end-to-end database development was done as prompt. So let me know how much you enjoy um, uh, this video, and remember, and I already scheduled a couple videos to be published weekly. Feel free to subscribe, hit the notification bell, so therefore whenever they become public, you will get notified. And also let me know how much you enjoy um, uh, these videos, okay? And feel free to share it if you want to. And I can't wait to have some feedback from you. Thank you.